the more complex the system, the further down the road, but we'll have accrued a lot of precision, right? Like whether it's nutrition, of tracking macros by kind of your eye versus learning how to do it with an app. It's like if you have a more complex nutritional task to overcome, like say you want to do a photo shoot, and you're like, okay, it's a bit more complex, but I've gone lean before. I've gone through iterations of this where I aim my precision at a different level of complexity, not as high, and I've been successful. And I've learned how to bridge those gaps between, okay, what precision am I capable to execute at here versus what is the complexity of the task, or what is the complexity required of the task we're trying to achieve. And I know my deltas, like I know the difference between those two, and how well I can cross from where I'm at, given the precision of the execution that I can operate at and the complexity demanded of me of the task that is the goal. And I think that's really, if you focus on nothing else but those factors, I think that's going to be really like what separates the wheat from the chaff, or the signal from the noise, is like, okay, is the thing I'm trying to achieve too complex for my ability, my current precision that I'm operating at? Right. And I think that's a good benchmark. And then as you get along, you get confident and you get more precise. And this is all the way down to the level of exercise execution, setup, stabilization. Like this is all down to like, hey, when you want to do a snatch, and if you can snatch 125, weightlifting is a sport of zero margin of error. So the precision is really high because the complexity is really high. But if you hit that, then you're good. You can get out. It's like, I think of it almost like throwing darts. It's like when you watch darts on TV, if darts is still on TV. When I was a kid, if I pretended to be sick and stayed home from school, you just watch TSN. And at a certain point in the middle of the day, the only people watching TSN in the middle of the day are you and a bunch of drunk people who aren't at work. And what do drunk people want to watch? Fucking other drunk people playing darts. And when you watch these fucking drunk guys get up there and like, they're kind of like, because they don't even know where they are. But dude, 60, 120, 180. I'm like, dude, I'll be sitting there fucking sober as a judge, throwing 100 singles at this, and like, but they go up and there's precise, but the complexity required to throw triple 20, triple 20, triple 20, and you're out. It's really fucking hard. Mm-hmm. So training is a lot like that, where you're like, your focus is on everything I do. I'm trying to learn the meta skill of precision, of like, when I'm dialing in my nutrition, learning the difference between a tablespoon of peanut butter and a tablespoon of peanut butter. Like that's precision and complexity that some people's brains just can't sort out. But if you can tell yourself honestly, like, no, like this is, this is a tablespoon of peanut butter, not this fucking, it's like that compounded across 4, 5, 6 meals a day across a week, that little dial in of precision, you would just end up like that Turkish gunslinger. You know that guy? The Turkish fucking, the guy that just shows up and just like grabs the fucking,
in the Olympics,
he turns it sideways like this, and everyone else is showing up with their telescopes on and shit. And he's just like, yo, in Istanbul, we keep this real, dog. Like, because there's an incremental progress in respecting the relationship between precision and complexity. And because things seem complex relative to your precision, right? Like if you're imprecise, then basic things seem complex. Mm-hmm. But if you're more precise, more complex things don't seem as complex. It's all relative to your precision. And I think, it's actually one of the things I really like in the modern bodybuilding era is this focus in the muscle building space on precision of execution, which I think is a relatively novel a novel concept in the bodybuilding world, where bodybuilding was all about volume and rep to rep inconsistency, blah, blah, blah. And I think they're one of the last to adopt it, because obviously Olympic weightlifting can't play that game. Powerlifting can, not as, it doesn't have the same margin for error as, let's say, Olympic weightlifting, because just the velocity component totally changes everything, the timing component. But then bodybuilding is like really pushing this precision. So if I were to teach someone a skill or a focus, it's this focus on focusing. It's this focus on precision. And it's like that will allow you to climb the ladders of complexity and get these expedient returns with a larger, physical bank account much quicker. because ultimately that I think is the relationship that you're looking to master, right? Like you're looking to master the relationship of how complex is the thing I'm trying to do relative to my precision and my ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you want it to be challenging, but not so challenging that you can't do it. And if you can
Yeah.
keep finding those increments and keep, as you get to one, find the next one as fast as possible, then you're going to start to expedite the progress, your progress a lot quicker.
Love it. Yeah. And to kind of bring it full circle to like good exercises, bad exercises. You and I did a podcast very recently where we gave a lot of praise to the walking lunge as like the GOAT. That's the one. That's the best exercise ever. Right. If you're ready for the level of complexity and you can execute it accurately. Right. So that may not be the best exercise for you. But if that's the end goal, if that's the exercise that we're working towards, and we take the intermediate steps to be able to get there and be able to do that level of complexity with a high level of accuracy, then what we're doing is we're taking exercises that resemble or they have similar qualities to the walking lunge, or they build competency and accuracy in the qualities that make up the walking lunge. Then we can take this, and maybe the best exercise for someone, like I've had very few clients where that's the best exercise day one for them to do,
Mm.
right? So maybe it's just a static lunge hold. Maybe it's a front foot elevated anterior loaded lunge. Maybe it's bilaterally supported stationary lunge. Maybe it's some variation of a split squat that they need to work on. And then maybe it's, dynamic step back lunges. Like there's all these different variations or intermediates along the way where they're all great fucking exercises. But which one is the best exercise? Well, that depends on the person, their skill level, how accurately they can execute it, the level of complexity that they can repeatably execute on. And that's what's going to make it a better or worse exercise for them. So as we start to look at these ideas, whether it's, diets, whether it's exercise, whether it's lifestyle things, and we start to classify them as, oh, this is good or this is bad, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think this is useful or this is less useful, more or less useful, right? Or more or less applicable for a person. And for us to look at this and see if it's good or bad for us, it takes understanding the whole context and how well we can execute on the basics really well, how complex this thing is, and what is, you mentioned this earlier, what is the return for time, right? Because if we're trainers and we're working with a client, like I could do 7 different things. Like I can do a seated abduction, a seated adduction. I can do a quad extension. I can do a hamstring curl. I can do a plank. I can do, I don't know, single leg stance drills. And all these kind of, they're a fraction of what makes up a walking lunge to some extent. And maybe someone that's very regressed and has a very low skill level, maybe they need that. But most people, you're going to be able to start to combine some of these variables and have a more efficient return on time for, say a stationary externally supported lunge. Like this is going to train a lot of the same qualities as those 6 other movements that I just mentioned, but it's going to do it in more of an expedited way to get them to be more accurate at executing on a higher level skill. So that's kind of the criteria of assessing if something is good or bad. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just how useful and how efficient is it for that person at that given time.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that's a principle based approach in the way that people can face down these questions. Doesn't answer any individual question, but it gives you a basis to answer all of the questions.